My legacy will be determined in the coming months. You know what legacy means? It's what you pass down to your children and your children's children. It's what remains of you when you're gone.
So, taking a break from what-if videos for a second, I think this is a topic that's been a long time coming. With House of the Dragon set to return this year, I figured I would go back to my roots a little bit and do a deep dive into probably one of the most integral characters in House of the Dragon, and compare him to some others. Corlys Velaryon. He's an interesting man. A renowned sailor, leader of the richest house in the realm, husband to Rhaenys, the queen who never was, father to former prince consort Rhaenyra Targaryen, and Rhaenyra Targaryen, the late wife of Prince Daemon Targaryen, and the previous rider of Vhagar. He's also the biggest supporter of Queen Rhaenyra and her strong sons, though I suppose it makes somewhat sense that he is, because even though they aren't bound to him by blood, like Rhaenyra wants people to believe, excluding their marriages to Baela and Rhaena, they are bound together by name. For Corlys, family is everything, or shall I say, legacy. I feel like some people have this misconception of the Sea Snake, just because he supports Rhaenyra and her bastard sons, just because he supports his wife as a woman and believes she should have been queen, and doesn't seem to care that his son is gay, that he is somehow a good and righteous man. Or at least better than the greedy, power-hungry, and unquestionably evil Otto Hightower, the Hand of the King. Which is not true. In fact, I would argue that despite his views and tolerances, Corlys is just as bad as Otto, which I know some of you might find hard to believe. I've had a couple comments on some of my what-if videos that just can't seem to accept that Corlys would even toy with the idea of treachery if it meant improving his family's standing like Lord Hightower. But here's the thing, he already is. Allow me to explain. But before that, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and now let's get into the video. Before we can understand Corlys and his motivations, let's explore his origins and that of his family. Corlys Velaryon is head of House Velaryon, a family which, like the ruling Targaryen, stems from Old Valyria, the empire of the Lost Dragon Lords. Though, unlike the Targaryens, they were not a dragon-riding house. While the Tards claimed the skies, they claimed the seas. They dominated with their ships, and it was with them that they truly made a name for themselves. House Velaryon is one of the oldest allies of House Targaryen, and if the texts are to be believed, some would say that their roots in Westeros are more ancient than that of the Targaryens as well. Regardless of who landed first though, the Velaryons and Targaryens have always been pretty good friends. In the books, the Velaryons were nigh indistinguishable from the Targs. They were white with silver hair and purple eyes, sometimes blue, and they often intermarried with the Targaryen family. Now they're black in the show. Aegon the Conqueror and his sister's mother was actually a Velaryon. The wife of Aenys I was also a Velaryon. So there is a little sea salt in the blood of the dragon, and a little fire in the blood of the sea. The Velaryons are a very prideful family. This is seen with Vaemond at Laena's funeral, the petition for Driftmark, and with his older brother Corlys throughout the entire show. The Velaryons pride themselves on being the blood of Old Valyria, and being one of the only other families to remain to carry on its legacy. Everyone kind of forgets about House Celtigar, though. Corlys, at the center of his character, is, as I described, his family. He's very prideful and very ambitious, and I think that's pretty easy for some people to miss because they're so caught up in hating the Greens and making them out to be unquestionably evil, which is not the case. Otto Hightower, while he does make moves against the king's wishes and seeks to further his family's standing to the detriment of his own daughter, that's not all there is to his character. Otto is someone who truly believes in the system of Westeros and its precedent for male inheritance. In his eyes and the eyes of many other lords on the continent, a woman cannot be allowed to rule. It doesn't matter how smart or capable she is, just being a woman is enough to disqualify you from taking the throne.
Rhaenyra will be a good queen.
It wouldn't matter if she were Jaehaerys himself, born again. Rhaenyra is a woman.
And the funny thing is, he's not the only person who thinks that. Lionel Strong, despite how he turns out in the show, was one of the first people to shoot down the idea of Rhaenyra inheriting the Iron Throne.
Rhaenyra. A girl. No queen has ever sat the Iron Throne.
That is only by tradition and precedence, Lord
If order and stability so concerns this council, then perhaps we shouldn't break 100 years of it by naming a girl heir.
The point I'm trying to make here is that Otto isn't some unique character who just hates all women. His mindset is pretty common among lords in Westeros. If it weren't for that, then Rhaenys would have been queen over Viserys, something I'm sure Corlys would have been happy about. Despite his scheming ways, Otto at least has the pretense of actually caring about the realm and its stability. Corlys, on the other hand, is very different. I believe this is what really separates the two men. Otto, as I mentioned before, is a schemer, but Corlys is more bold in what he wants. He is a prideful and ambitious man, and I feel it's really easy for people to forget that. Sure, he accepts Rhaenyra's sons as his own family. Yes, he loves and values his wife, Rhaenys, but more than that, he values his legacy. What he'll be remembered for in the years to come. One of the greatest things he's remembered for is his 9 voyages that he made when he was younger. Corlys, when he was younger, sailed around the known world, from Yiti to Ashai, and other places, collecting goods and riches that cemented his house as the richest in the realm. The Hall of 9 that Lena mentions in episode 5 is meant to commemorate those voyages that he made. This is what Corlys means when he says he built the strength of his house with his own back.
When I ascended the Driftwood throne, I knew what I wanted. So I went out and seized it. Unlike every other lord of the realm, I can say that I built my house's high seat with the strength of mine own back.
So it's very clear he takes a lot of pride in himself, and who wouldn't after accomplishments like his? But despite all of that, he still wants more. Corlys is very much a self-serving man, no matter what he seems to accept, tolerate, or stand for. He has no issue using his own family to get what he wants. Like most lords, and like Otto Hightower, Corlys plays by the rules until he sees an opportunity to benefit himself. Like in episode 1, after the death of Queen Aemma, Corlys is on board with Daemon being heir to the Iron Throne. He understands the precedent for male succession and doesn't even oppose it. It's only when Otto refuses this and says Rhaenyra would also have a claim, and Viserys makes it clear that he doesn't want to choose between his brother and his daughter, that he sees an opening for himself to slip into. Like a snake. If we're diverging from the path, then why not see if things will go in his direction? He offers that his wife Lady Rhaenys could be the heir, and how she had a strong claim at the Great Council of 101, being the only child of King Jaehaerys' oldest son, Aemon. But obviously this didn't work out, but even then, this doesn't stop him from trying to get his family closer to the Iron Throne. With the death of the Queen, even with Rhaenyra being named the heir, the succession is shaky at best, even with all these lords swearing her fealty. With Daemon exiled and the king only having one child, if anything were to happen to her, we could be facing another succession crisis. So, seeing an opportunity for himself, Corlys tries to make his daughter the queen. We give Otto a lot of slack for what he did to Alicent, which is fair, I'm not refuting that, but it's like we forget that Corlys tried to marry off his 12-year-old daughter to the king as well, even going as far as to feed her lines to make her seem more appealing.
It would be a great honor to join our houses, as they were in Old Valyria. I would give you many children of pure Valyrian blood, so that we might strengthen the royal line and the realm.
Is that what your father told you to say?
He even smiles when he watches them walk around the castle together. Like Otto Hightower, he doesn't see just how uncomfortable this is on his own child. What's worse is that his wife didn't even want this for Lena either, but he went along with it anyway, and this is a theme with Corlys' character. Despite his love for Rhaenys, he has shown that he is more than willing and has no problem going around her, at least earlier on in the series, to get what he wants. He ignores her about Lena. He ignores her about Laenor. Rhaenys never wanted Laenor to marry Rhaenyra in the first place, because she knew that Rhaenyra's claim to the throne would always be under threat with the birth of Aegon.
We are placing our son in danger.
The lords of the realm bent the knee to Rhaenyra and swore obeisance to her.
That was before there was a true-born prince named Aegon Targaryen. Rhaenyra's succession will be challenged. Knives will come out, for her, her husband, and for their heirs.
And yet, he goes for this betrothal anyway. He says the houses swore to Rhaenyra, and that he's just trying to remedy the small-minded error of the Great Council. But even if this is a factor, it's clear that there is much more at play here. It's not primarily about correcting a mistake. If he feels so strong that Rhaenys should have been queen, Why isn't he contesting Viserys' rule? Even if he is the king, Corlys has had no problem going against him and even belittling him before. Like in episode 5, when the king goes to see Corlys about wedding Rhaenyra to Rhaenyra. In cases like this, with the king coming to visit you, most lords would probably greet the king personally, like what happened in Game of Thrones when Robert rode north and Ned stood outside with his entire family and others to welcome him. It's a sign of respect. So imagine what it would have been like if the king came and instead of being greeted by his vassal, he was greeted by their child and told where to find them, like he ranks above the king. This is what Corlys does to Viserys. Instead of personally receiving the king, he makes Viserys seek him out for an audience. He's the one sitting on a throne when he arrives. It's a display to show who's in control here. You need and want something from me, not the other way around. I'm in control. Kinda like Daemon. Corlys does say as much himself earlier on.
I've always thought of you and I as having been made from the same cloth. We are the realm's second sons, Daemon. Our worth is not given. It must be made.
And this really explains a lot about his character, his actions, why he's so determined to get his family close to the throne, why he'll even tolerate bastards inheriting his family home even though the realm will be against them and his own family will be against them at times too. There's this huge emphasis on second sons in House of the Dragon, the whole heir and despair kind of deal, and second sons are rarely acknowledged and they have to eke out existences for themselves. Like Daemon, despite being such an imposing figure, he has nothing but a dragon and his sword to his name. He has no lands, no titles to hold, nothing for his children to inherit through him. Same thing with Otto. He's a second son. He has no lands, no titles for his children to inherit. Everything he has, he had to earn. Say what you will about him, but he's the hand of the king for a reason. He knows what he's doing, even if he's not the most agreeable person. Then, Vaemon, Corlys' younger brother, always stuck in the shadows, having to follow his lead, and once it seems like he has a chance at power of his own, he takes it. He's ambitious, but also kinda justified in not wanting bastards to rule his family home, no matter who accepted them. But that's a topic for a different video. The point I'm trying to get at here is that Corlys is the same as all these guys I mentioned here. Now, of course, he's not a second son in the literal sense, since he is the oldest of his line in Lord of Driftmark, but that is different for his house as a whole. When you think about the Velaryons, what comes to mind first? Aegon the Conqueror, his sisters. When you think about Westeros, you think about the Iron Throne, you think about the Conquest, you think about Balerion, Vhagar, and Meraxes, razing kingdoms to the ground and forcing them to kneel. You don't think about the men behind them, the ships sailing for them. You think fire, you think blood, you think House Targaryen. House Velaryon, despite being the oldest supporters of the House of the Dragon, maybe even being in Westeros before them as well, never seemed to get the recognition that it deserved. They are the realm's second son. They aren't talked about like the Targaryens are. Even hundreds of years later, people still remember Aegon and his sisters and what they did.
Harren and all his sons roasted alive within these walls. Aegon Targaryen changed the rules. That's why every child alive still knows his name, 300 years after his death.
But the same can't be said for House Velaryon. When you think about the Conquest, you don't really think about how the Velaryon fleet carried Aegon's men and helped them fight. At least they're not your first thought. This is why I believe Corlys is so ambitious, and why nothing ever seems to be enough. Why he wants so desperately to be near the Iron Throne. Though he loves her, he doesn't want justice for Rhaenys. It's notoriety he wants. Legacy. A grand one at that. Like the Targaryens get just for being born into the family. It's the same way firstborn children seem to get everything handed to them. How sons are more favored than daughters. The Targaryens are revered just for being the blood of Aegon. Though that took a little work to solidify, but the point still stands. Corlys doesn't want to be overlooked. He's overlooked when counseling people about potential threats. He's overlooked when he wants his daughter to be queen. It's infuriating. The Targaryens demand so much respect as the blood of Old Valyria, but he is the blood of Old Valyria too.
This is an absurdity. My house is Valyrian, the greatest power in the realm.
My house survived the doom, and 1,000 tribulations besides.
He wants to be remembered. He deserves to be remembered. That's why he went on his voyages to elevate his house where it deserved to be. Why he doesn't care about the boys being bastards. Blood may thin, but legacy lasts forever. even if it's a problem in the short term, years later when they're all dead and gone. Without concrete proof, no one will ever be able to tell if the rumors about their parentage are true or not. What they will remember, though, are names.
History does not remember blood. It remembers names.
And that is his end goal. While sure, he has some care for the boys, the real reason he doesn't care who the dad is because of what they provide for him and his family, a grander legacy. When they rise to fame and power, so does he. This is his key to immortality. In the history books, he won't just be another Lord of the Tides. He'll be remembered as a great sailor, adventurer, husband to the queen who never was, father to the former prince consort, father-in-law to the queen, grandfather of the future king, and future lord of the tides. It's a grand and selfish dream. To be remembered and respected, he uses his children and grandchildren to get what he wants, moving them around like pieces on a board, despite the danger that he's putting them in. Though eventually he does see the error of his ways after the death of Laena and Laenor, but it's still a shame. In his pursuit to not be overlooked by the world and by history, he overlooked the needs of his wife, children, and even grandchildren, trying to get them to fit into his mold. And now they're in too deep. They're all in danger. So one has to wonder, will the House Velaryon sink beneath the seas of history or rise above its waves? Either way, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and I will see you all next time.